The trade station Orbit Well floated in the darkness of space like a giant ring of metal and light. It was always busy. Ships came in every hour, bringing goods from dozens of worlds. Workers from many species walked the long corridors, their footsteps mixing with the hum of engines and the soft announcements from the station's speakers. Tom was used to the noise. He had worked on the docks for 3 years. His job was simple: check cargo, fix broken clamps, and make sure nothing caught fire or flew away into space. He liked the routine. Every day was almost the same, except when something broke badly or a ship arrived late. On that day, something was a little different. A new worker appeared in his section. She was an alien, but Tom did not know her species. She was shorter than him, thin, and wore a loose brown hoodie that covered her head and most of her face. Her hands were in dark gloves, the kind used for heavy work. She did not speak to anyone, not even to the dock supervisor, except to answer short questions with a nod. Tom saw her struggling to find the right tool for the cargo clamps. He walked over, holding a metal case. "You looking for this?" he asked, showing her the clamp scanner. She looked at him for a second, then nodded and took it. Her voice was quiet when she said, "Thank you." "You new here?" Tom asked. Another small nod. No other answer. She turned back to her work, scanning the large metal containers lined up for inspection. Tom shrugged and went back to his own task. He had seen many workers like her before. The station hired cheap labor from outer colonies. Most of them worked for a few months, saved credits, and then left. This one would probably do the same. As the hours passed, Tom noticed something unusual about her gloves. They had thin silver lines running along the fingers, like tiny wires. It was not a standard dock tool. He wondered why she needed them, but decided it was not his business. The rest of the shift was quiet. Cargo from a mining vessel was unloaded without trouble. Tom signed the inspection reports and headed to the break area. On the way, he saw the new worker again. She was moving quickly toward the outer docks, away from where she had been assigned. She glanced around before turning into a narrow corridor that led toward Dock 7. Dock 7 was not in use that day. The area was under repair after a small accident last week. Only security and repair teams were supposed to be there. Tom stopped for a moment. Curious, why would a new worker go to a closed section? He thought about following her but decided against it. He was tired, and he had a hot drink waiting in the break room. Still, the image of her glancing around stayed in his mind. Later that evening, a strange buzz went through the station. Workers whispered about surprise inspections happening at night. Security officers were seen near Dock 7, carrying scanning equipment. Some said contraband might be hidden in the cargo there. Others thought it was just a safety check. Tom finished his second shift and walked home through the crew quarters area. On the way, he saw the new worker again. She was coming out of Dock 7. Her hoodie pulled low over her face. In her hands, she held a small black device, no bigger than a book. She seemed to be talking softly to it, but Tom could not hear the words. He stepped closer, thinking to greet her, but she quickly put the device away and turned down another corridor. By the time he reached the corner, she was gone. The next morning, the station suffered a small power fault. The lights flickered, and several docking clamps stopped working. Alarms sounded, calling workers to secure the cargo before it shifted. Tom ran to help near Dock 4, but before he could reach the clamps, he saw her again. The new worker was already there, moving faster than any normal person could. She tightened the locking systems, her hands moving with sharp precision. In less than a minute, the cargo was secure. Then she stepped back, breathing evenly, as if nothing had happened. Tom walked over. "That was quick. You're fast," he said. She just gave him a short glance and walked away without a word. Tom stood there, puzzled. She was not just a quiet worker. There was something else about her, something careful and hidden. He decided to keep an eye on her. After all, on Orbit Well, nothing stayed hidden for long. The next day on Orbit Well began like any other. Cargo ships came and went. Workers moved in long lines, and the air smelled faintly of fuel and metal. Tom was checking the clamps on a transport from the moon belt when he heard two loaders talking. Nearby, they say Dock 7 had visitors last night. One of them said, "Not repair crews, real security teams." Tom listened while tightening the bolts on a container. "Why would they be there?" the other loader asked. "Inspection," the first one replied. "Something about cargo records not matching." "But you didn't hear it from me." Tom pretended not to notice their conversation, but the words stayed in his head. Dock 7 had been under repair. No cargo should be there at all. And yet, he had seen the new worker in that same area, late at night. After the shift ended, Tom passed the corridor leading toward Dock 7. The closed section was marked with yellow lights, but the security door stood slightly open. He paused. Curiosity pulled at him. He stepped closer, careful not to draw attention. Inside, the long dock was quiet. No workers, no machines running, just the sound of distant engines. The floor was clean, too clean for an area under repair. Then he saw movement near the far wall. The hooded alien worker, the one who had been so silent, was standing by a stack of sealed containers. She held a small black device, like the one he had seen before, and spoke into it in a language Tom did not know. Her voice was low and steady, but the tone carried a sense of urgency. The device gave a soft beep after every few words. She paused, tapped something on it, and then placed it inside her pocket. Tom decided to call out, "Hey," he said from a safe distance. She turned sharply, her hood casting a shadow over her eyes. For a second, she seemed ready to run. "It's just me," Tom added, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "I was passing by." She did not answer. Instead, she stepped backward toward the containers. "You're not supposed to be here," Tom said. Her gaze stayed on him for a moment. Then she turned and walked quickly to the far side of the dock. Before he could say anything else, she was gone, slipping through a maintenance hatch he had never noticed before. Tom stood there for a moment, unsure if he should follow. Something about her movements told him she was not just avoiding trouble. She was hiding something important. That evening, the station faced another unexpected problem. A freighter called Silver Ray came in for docking, but lost power in one engine. It crashed into the magnetic clamps, sending a shudder through the dock. Cargo toppled, alarms blared, and crew members scrambled to stop containers from sliding toward the airlock. Tom rushed to help. As he reached the crash site, he saw her again. The hooded worker was already pulling an injured crew member out from under a crate. She moved with speed and strength far beyond what her thin frame suggested. A heavy piece of debris blocked the path. Without hesitation, she gripped it and lifted it enough for two people to crawl free. Tom stared, surprised. Even with mechanical gloves, lifting that much weight was no easy task. "Name?" Tom asked as they worked side by side to move smaller containers back into place. She hesitated, then said softly, "Mira." Before he could ask more, she stepped away, disappearing into the smoke and noise. Later, when things calmed down, Tom went to the break room. Two security officers sat nearby, talking in low voices. "Unregistered operative," one of them said. "Yeah," the other replied. "Someone slipping through the docks. No record in the station files. Could be smuggling. Could be worse." Tom drank his water slowly, pretending not to hear. But inside, the pieces began to connect. Mira was new. Mira worked in a section she was not assigned to. Mira could lift more than she should. And now security was looking for an unregistered operative. He remembered the way she had looked at him on Dock 7, cautious but not afraid. Whatever she was doing, she was skilled enough to move in and out of places without being stopped. When Tom returned to his quarters, he could not sleep. Outside his small window, the lights of Orb and Welve glowed against the dark. Somewhere on the station, Mira was moving quietly, carrying out a mission he did not understand. Tom decided one thing before he finally closed his eyes. If he saw her again, he would not let her walk away without answers. Morning came slowly on Orb and Welve. The station's artificial lights shifted from a cool blue to a warmer yellow, signaling the start of the day cycle. Tom was already on the docks. checking magnetic clamps on a supply freighter. His mind was not on the work. He kept thinking about Mira. He had not seen her since the accident with the Silver Ray. Most workers came in early to sign their shift logs, but she was nowhere in sight. Tom tried to focus on his job, but every few minutes he glanced toward the loading area, half expecting to see her hoodie moving through the crowd. The shift passed without much trouble until an alarm cut through the noise of the docks. A flashing red light appeared above Dock 5, and a voice from the speakers called for emergency crews. Dock 5 breach warning. All personnel clear the area. Tom turned toward the sound. A small cargo shuttle had clipped the dock barrier while entering. The impact had twisted its landing strut, and part of the hull was crushed inward. Sparks jumped from a broken panel as smoke hissed from the ship's side. Before security could arrive, workers ran to help. The shuttle's rear hatch opened, and two crew members stumbled out, coughing from the smoke. A third was trapped under a collapsed crate inside the docking bay. Tom pushed forward through the crowd. He grabbed a pry bar from a tool cart and moved to the damaged hatch. That was when he saw her. Mira was already inside the shuttle, kneeling beside the trapped crew member. The crate pinning him down was heavy enough that 3 people would struggle to move it. But Mira slid her hands beneath the edge, her gloved fingers finding a grip. With one steady motion, she lifted it high enough for Tom and another worker to drag the injured man free. The trapped crew member groaned in pain but was breathing. Mira checked his pulse quickly and then helped guide him toward the waiting medics. "You again," Tom said as they stepped away from the wreck. Mira gave a short nod. Her eyes moved over the dock, scanning the crowd, the security team, and the shuttle. She seemed to be searching for something or someone. "Why are you always at the center of trouble?" Tom asked. She did not answer. Instead, she stepped back, blending into the line of workers. Within moments, she was gone again. Tom sighed. She was like a shadow, appearing and disappearing without warning. But today he had seen something that could not be explained as luck. The way she moved, the strength she used, that was not normal for any dock worker he had met. Later that day, Tom went to deliver a repair report to the dock supervisor's office. On the way, he passed the open door of the security lounge. 2 officers were inside, leaning over a table covered in data pads. "Dock 7 again," one of them said. "It's the same as before. Access logs don't match the people who were actually there." "And the unregistered one?" the other asked. "Still out there," the first replied. "We think they were involved in the last 2 incidents. Could be here for the smuggling ring." Tom slowed his steps. He kept his head forward, pretending not to listen, but the words made his stomach tighten. Smuggling rings on Orbit 12 were dangerous. Some had friends in high places. If Mira was mixed up in that, she was walking a dangerous path. That night, Tom returned to his quarters and sat by the small table with his meal untouched. He thought about what he had seen. Mira helping during accidents, Mira in a closed dock, Mira carrying a strange device, Mira lifting heavy weight like it was nothing. Part of him wanted to stay out of it. He was just a maintenance worker. Getting involved in whatever she was doing could get him thrown off the station, or worse. But another part of him, the part that had seen her save lives without asking for thanks, wanted to know the truth. He did not have to wait long. 3 shifts later, Tom was working near Dock 6 when he heard a sharp voice behind him. "Stop right there." He turned. 3 station guards in black uniforms were standing near a side corridor. Between them, Mira stood with her hands raised slightly. One guard spoke into a wrist comm, reporting something Tom could not hear. "You are under investigation." The lead guard said to Mira, "Remove your hood." Mira stayed still. Her eyes flicked toward Tom, just for an instant. Then she slowly reached up and pulled the hood back. Tom froze. Beneath the hood was not the face of a tired dock worker. Her skin had a faint metallic shimmer, like it held light under the surface. Thin, curved lines of silver traced from her temples down to her jaw, patterns too perfect to be natural. Her eyes glowed softly, not bright enough to light the air, but enough to make the guards pause. She was no ordinary worker. Before the guards could react, Mira moved. She stepped forward, catching one guard's wrist and twisting until his weapon dropped to the floor. A quick motion disabled the second guard's blaster, sparks jumping from its side. She turned toward the third, who backed away, unsure whether to attack or call for help. Tom felt his heart pound. Mira did not hurt them, but she took away their weapons in seconds. Then she looked at him and said in a calm, steady voice, "If you want to live, follow me." Without thinking, Tom moved. He had no idea where they were going or what danger was coming, but something in her voice told him it was real. As they slipped into the shadow of the maintenance tunnels, the sounds of the docks faded behind them. Whatever this was, it had only just begun. The maintenance tunnels of Orban 12 were narrow, dim, and smelled of oil and old metal. Pipes ran along the ceiling, hissing quietly, and the floor was covered in a thin layer of dust from years of repairs. Tom followed Mira through the twisting passage, his boots echoing in the confined space. He still could not believe what he had just seen. Moments ago, she had disarmed 3 armed guards without breaking a sweat. Now she moved quickly but silently, checking corners before turning, her steps sure and balanced. She looked like someone who had walked these paths many times before. They stopped near a junction where the tunnel split in 3 directions. Mira turned to him, her hood still pushed back, the faint metallic shimmer of her skin visible in the low light. Her eyes, glowing softly, locked on his. "You should not be here," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was no doubt it was an order. Tom took a step back but did not leave. "I could say the same for you. Who are you?" Mira hesitated. Her gaze flicked to the shadows, as if checking they were alone. Then she reached for the zipper of her hoodie and pulled it down fully underneath. She wore a fitted suit made of smooth, dark material lined with thin silver lines that pulsed faintly, like veins of light. The design was unlike anything Tom had seen in standard station gear. The suit looked strong yet light, and it fit her perfectly, as if made for her alone. "You think I am a dock worker," she said. "That was never true." "Then what are you?" Tom asked. Her answer came with no hesitation this time. "I am from the Valari Royal House. My mission is to stop a smuggling network that moves dangerous technology through this station. If I fail, thousands could die." Tom blinked. The words were heavy, almost too much to take in at once. "Royal House, as in royalty? You mean you're—" "Yes," she cut in. "But my title does not matter here. What matters is stopping the shipment that is arriving tonight." Tom looked at her armor again. Now it made sense why she could lift heavy weight, why she moved with such precision, why she avoided attention. "And the guards?" he asked. "They work for someone who wants the smuggling to continue," she said. "I could not let them take me. They would not arrest me for questioning. They would remove me before I could act." Tom rubbed the back of his neck. "So why tell me this? I'm just a maintenance worker." "Because you have seen too much," Mira said simply. "And because I need help. You have access to doors and systems that I cannot open without drawing attention. If you help me, I can finish my mission faster." Tom thought about the danger. Helping her meant going against people who had power and weapons. But he also remembered the way she had saved people without hesitation, pulling the crew out from under debris, securing the cargo during the power fault, protecting others while risking herself. "What exactly do you need?" he asked finally. Mira's expression softened slightly. "First, we need to reach Dock 7 without being detected. The shipment is hidden there. Second, we find the main control crate and shut down its locator signal so it cannot be moved to its buyer. Third, we survive." Tom let out a short breath. "Survive, right? That's the easy part, I guess." A faint smile touched her lips, but it was gone almost instantly. "Follow me." They moved deeper into the tunnels, bypassing security patrols by taking narrow side passages. Mira led the way with steady confidence, and Tom began to notice how she seemed to sense movement even before it was visible. Once, she stopped him with a hand signal before they turned a corner. Moments later, 2 guards passed by, talking quietly. After nearly 20 minutes, they reached a service hatch, marked with faded yellow paint. Mira crouched beside it and pulled a small tool from her belt. She pressed it to the hatch's lock, and in seconds it clicked open. Inside was a storage chamber filled with crates and supply containers. From there, they could see through a grated vent into Dock 7. The dock was dimly lit, but Tom counted at least 6 large containers stacked near the far wall. 3 figures in plain clothes were moving around them, checking data pads and speaking in low voices. "That's them," Mira said. Quietly, "They are preparing the shipment." Tom frowned. "What's in it?" "Plasma cores," she replied. "Powerful enough to destroy an entire city if triggered. They are forbidden in most of the galaxy, but some pay well for them." Tom swallowed hard. The danger was suddenly very real. "How do we stop them?" he asked. "First, you will open the side maintenance door from here," Mira said. "It will let me slip inside without using the main entrance. Then I will disable the locator beacon in the main crate. Without that signal, their buyer will not risk sending a ship to collect it." Tom worked at the control panel on the wall, entering his access codes. The small display blinked green, and somewhere beyond the wall, a door slid open. Mira looked at him. "Stay here. Watch the panel. If I signal, lock all doors leading to this dock." Tom nodded, his hands already tense on the controls. Mira moved through the vent and out of sight. Tom could see her shadow flicker across the floor as she crept toward the containers. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then a sharp voice echoed across the dock. "Who are you?" one of the men demanded. Tom saw Mira stand tall, her hoodless figure clearly visible now. The man's voice rose in alarm. Weapons were drawn. Before anyone fired, Mira moved like lightning. She knocked one weapon aside, grabbed another by the wrist, and sent him crashing into a crate. The third man tried to run, but she caught him with a quick sweep of her leg. Tom could barely keep up with the speed of her movements. Within seconds, all 3 men were on the ground, groaning and clutching their arms or legs. Mira turned to the largest crate and placed a small device against its side. A soft blue light spread across the surface, then faded. She looked toward the vent and gave a sharp hand signal. Success. Tom exhaled in relief. But before he could relax, the dock doors slid open and the sound of more boots filled the air. The heavy boots of security patrols pounded against the dock floor. Voices shouted orders, and the hum of drone engines filled the air. Tom's heart jumped into his throat. From his place in the storage chamber, he saw Mira step back from the crate she had disabled. Her eyes darted toward the new rivals, 5 guards in black armor, each carrying a charged stun rifle. Behind them, small hovering drones scanned the area with glowing red lights. Mira did not hesitate. She ran straight toward the side maintenance door Tom had opened earlier. Tom quickly tapped the control panel, locking the main dock doors to slow the guards down. The loud clang of the locks echoed through the space. "In here," Tom called. Mira slipped through the hatch just as the guards spotted her. Energy bolts cracked against the wall, leaving small scorch marks where she had been seconds earlier. "Move," she said, grabbing Tom by the arm. They ran through the narrow service tunnel, their footsteps echoing in the metal corridor. Behind them, the sound of boots and drone engines grew louder. The air smelled faintly of ozone from the shots fired in the dock. "Where are we going?" Tom asked between breaths. "Transit hub," Mira said. "From there, we can disappear into the public crowd." The tunnels twisted in sharp turns, some sections so narrow that Tom had to turn sideways to pass quickly. At one junction, a drone floated into view ahead of them, its scanner beam sweeping the corridor. Mira pulled a small sphere from her belt and tossed it toward the drone. The sphere burst into a cloud of bright sparks that overloaded the drone's sensors. It spun wildly before crashing into the floor. "Keep moving," she ordered. They burst out of the service tunnel into a maintenance bay filled with repair carts and stacks of spare hull plates. 2 workers looked up in surprise, but Mira raised a finger to her lips, silently asking for their silence. The workers exchanged a quick glance and then went back to their tools, pretending they had seen nothing. Tom realized then that not everyone on the station trusted security. Some would rather look the other way than get involved. They crossed the bay and ducked into another side corridor. This one led them toward the central transit hub, the busiest place on Orban 12. The hum of engines and chatter of voices grew louder as they approached. But before they could reach it, 3 more guards appeared at the far end of the corridor. "Stop!" one shouted, raising his rifle. Mira moved first. She pushed Tom behind a supply crate and stepped into the open, drawing their attention. The first guard fired, but she sidestepped smoothly, the bolt sizzling past her shoulder. She closed the distance in seconds, striking the weapon from his hands and sending him to the floor with a swift kick. The other two tried to fire together, but Mira used one as a shield, forcing them to hesitate. She shoved him aside, struck the second with a quick elbow, and sent the third stumbling back into the wall. "Go," she called to Tom. They ran again, the noise of the fight already drawing more voices in the distance. The transit hub opened before them, a massive circular chamber filled with people of many species. Ships came and went through the docking spokes, while vendors called out their goods from stalls along the walls. The crowd was thick, moving in all directions. "Stay close," Mira said, pulling her hood back over her head. She moved into the crowd, blending in with the stream of travelers. Tom followed, trying to keep his head down. For a moment, it seemed like they might have escaped, but then the voice of a security commander boomed over the hub's loudspeakers. "Attention! 2 fugitives are in the central hub. A female alien in a brown hood and a human male in work gear. They are armed and dangerous." Heads turned. The crowd shifted uneasily. Tom felt dozens of eyes on them. Mira grabbed his hand and pulled him toward a line of passenger trams on the far side of the hub. "We take the tram to the outer ring," she said. "They will search here first." They boarded just as the tram doors closed. The vehicle slid away from the hub, the noise fading behind them. Tom leaned against the wall, trying to catch his breath. "You were right. They're not arresting you. They're hunting you." Mira glanced toward the door. "And now they're hunting you too." The tram moved smoothly along the transparent tube that connected sections of the station. Outside, stars glimmered against the black of space, and far below, the blue swirl of a gas giant filled part of the view. Tom watched it for only a moment before Mira spoke again. "We're not safe yet. The outer ring is where smugglers hide. But it's also where we can disappear, if you trust me." He gave a short nod. "At this point, I don't have much choice." When the tram stopped, they stepped into a quieter section of the station. The walls here were older, marked with patches from years of repairs. The air smelled faintly of spice and engine oil. Fewer security patrols came here, but the people who lived in this ring were quick to notice. Strangers. Mira led him through a small marketplace where alien merchants sold food and machine parts. At one stall, she handed the vendor a small silver token. The vendor nodded and motioned toward a side door. Tom followed her inside, and they entered a hidden passage behind the stall. It was narrow and dark, but it seemed to lead deeper into the ring. "Where are we now?" Tom asked. "A safe place," she said, "for now." But Tom noticed the way her eyes scanned the shadows, even here. She was ready for trouble. He realized something important in that moment. This chase was not just about escaping the guards. It was about reaching something, or someone, before the smugglers could finish their plan. And whatever that plan was, Mira was the only one standing in their way. The lights in the control room flickered again as Aaron leaned closer to the glowing panels. The alien city was quiet outside, but inside the underground station, there was a strange tension in the air. He looked at Mira, who was scanning a series of readings on a tall screen. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "We have less than 2 days," she said. "The core is heating up faster than expected. If it passes the limit, the shield will fail." Aaron rubbed his hands. "Together, what happens when the shield fails? Radiation," she replied simply. "Everything will burn." The thought made Aaron's stomach turn. He had seen what radiation could do to plants and soil back on a mining moon. Now it was not just about saving Mira's people. It was about stopping a disaster that could spread beyond this planet. They worked in silence for a while, checking energy lines and reading pressure values. Aaron noticed that Mira moved with precision. Every button she pressed had purpose. Every reading she studied was stored in her memory without hesitation. Then, a faint beeping sound came from the far wall. Mira froze and turned. Her eyes narrowed as she walked toward the sound. "What's that?" Aaron asked, silent alarm. She said, "Someone just accessed the security system from outside the base." Aaron's first thought was of the workers. Could it be one of them? She shook her head. The workers are not trained to hack into the system. This is someone else. She tapped a panel, and a blurry image appeared on the screen. A figure in a dark suit was moving quickly through one of the tunnels that led into the city's core. The person's movements were swift, almost as swift for a normal human or alien worker. "They are going to the core chamber," Mira said. Aaron grabbed a small handheld device from the table. "Then we should go after them?" Mira nodded and pulled out a metallic rod from the wall. It extended into a slim staff that gave off a faint hum. They left the control room and entered the main corridor. The tunnel walls glowed with soft blue light from embedded crystals. The hum of machinery filled the air. The beeping of the alarm was still faint but steady. They moved quickly, passing a few empty work bays and storage rooms. At one point, Mira stopped and placed a hand on the wall. She closed her eyes for a moment. "What are you doing?" Aaron whispered. Listening, she replied, "This wall connects to the airflow shafts. Sound travels here." She turned sharply to the left and ran toward a narrow passage. Aaron followed. The passage was dim and tight, forcing them to move single file. They heard the faint sound of footsteps ahead. The figure was close. When they emerged from the narrow passage into a wider hall, they caught sight of the intruder. It was a tall figure wearing a dark visor and carrying a cylindrical container. "Stop." Mira called out. The figure didn't stop. Instead, they broke into a sprint. Aaron felt the rush of adrenaline. As he chased after them, Mira moved even faster, her staff glowing brighter. She swung it in a wide arc, releasing a flash of light that hit the floor in front of the intruder. The figure skidded to a stop, but only for a moment. Then they jumped sideways, disappearing through another passage. "They know the tunnels," Mira muttered. "That means they have been here before." They continued the chase until the tunnel opened into the core chamber entrance. A thick metal door blocked the way. It was sealed, but the intruder was already connecting a small device to the lock. Aaron didn't wait for instructions. He rushed forward and grabbed the intruder's arm. The two struggled, the container clanging against the floor. Mira quickly moved in, striking the intruder's leg. With her staff, the figure fell, and the visor cracked open, revealing a pale face with sharp features. It was not a worker. It was not even one of Mira's kind. Aaron recognized the face from an old Bounty Listan independent scavenger named Terran Voss, known for stealing high-value tech and selling it to hostile factions. "You have no idea what you are dealing with," Terran hissed. "I know enough," Aaron replied, holding him down. "You are going to take something from the core." Terran's eyes shifted to Mira. "Your people don't deserve to hold it. The core belongs to whoever can control it." Mira's voice was cold. "The core belongs to no one. It keeps this world alive." Before Terran could reply, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed from the other side of the hall. 3 armored guards appeared, their weapons raised. Mira quickly explained, and the guards restrained Terran. As they led him away, Aaron picked up the fallen container. It was heavier than it looked. He passed it to Mira. She examined it for a few seconds and then frowned. "This is not a weapon," she said. "It is a stabilizer coil. Without it, the core will overheat twice as fast." Aaron understood immediately. So he was not just stealing. He was trying to cause a failure. Mira nodded, and he almost did. They rushed back to the core chamber and reinstalled the coil. The readings on the panels dropped slightly, but Mira's face stayed serious. "We bought time," she said. "But whoever sent him will try again, and next time, they will be harder to stop." Aaron felt the weight of her words. The danger was no longer a distant threat. It was already here. Outside, the city lights glimmered, faintly in the night, but deep underground, the fight to protect the core had just begun. The station was still shaking from the last tremor. Outside, the void stretched in endless darkness. But closer to the habitat's shields, the wreckage of alien drones floated aimlessly. The war was not over, yet the enemy's main attack had been stopped. Aaron stood in the central control hall with sweat on his forehead, breathing hard. His hands ached from gripping the controls of the defense turrets for hours. Lena stepped inside. Her hoodie was gone again, revealing the silver patterns on her skin and the faint glow in her eyes. But now there was no tension between them. She had fought beside him, taken command when he faltered, and risked her own life to protect the station's civilians. Status report, she said in a calm voice. Shields are holding at 20%. Power grid is stable for now. Enemy forces are retreating, Aaron replied. He tried to sound calm, but deep down, he was still amazed by her. She had not only shown her true abilities, but also proved she cared about more than just her own kind. The surviving crew members gathered around. Some of them still looked uneasy at Lena, but they could not deny what she had done. Her people had always been seen as distant and cold. Yet here she was, covered in scorch marks, hands trembling from exhaustion, still giving orders to save humans. Aaron glanced at her. You could have left, he said quietly. You could have gone back to your people when the first wave hit. Lena looked at him. And leave you to face this alone. No, you would have done the same. Before he could answer, a voice crackled over the comms. It was Commander Hale from the orbital fleet. Aaron, we have intercepted enemy communications. They are regrouping. We estimate another attack in 1 hour. This may be their last push. The room went silent. Everyone's faces tightened. They had already used most of their weapons. The drones could be repaired only partially. We will not survive another wave like the last one, said one of the engineers. Lena stepped forward. There is a way, she said, but it will cost me everything. The room turned to her. Aaron frowned. What do you mean? My core energy, she said, touching the faint glow at the center of her chest. If I release it, it will burn through the enemy's ships. They will not come back. But I will not survive. No. Aaron said sharply. There has to be another way. There is no time to look for one, she replied. Her voice was steady, but her eyes softened. This station has hundreds of families. You have your people. I can end this before it begins again. The crew stared at her. Some were ready to accept her sacrifice. Others looked away, uncomfortable with the thought. Aaron stepped closer. You told me once that you were not just a worker. You were a leader among your kind. A leader does not throw their life away if there is another path. Work with me. We'll find it. Lena hesitated. The seconds felt heavy. Outside the viewport, faint enemy signatures began to appear on the sensors. The hour they had been promised was now down to minutes. Finally, she said, if I stay, we risk everyone dying. And if you go, I lose you, Aaron said, his voice firm. I'm not ready for that. She looked into his eyes. Something in his tone made her pause. She had been trained to think of a greater good above personal bonds. But now, after days of working beside him, she understood something new. Humanity's strength was not just in weapons or strategy. It was in refusing to give up on one another. Fine, she said. Then we do it together. They worked quickly, rerouting the power grid to overload the station's main cannon. It was dangerous. If the energy levels went too high, the entire platform could explode. Lena linked her core to the cannon's targeting systems, boosting its precision. Aaron handled the control feeds, pushing the station's power reserves to the edge. The enemy fleet drew closer. Thousands of small fighters and several heavy carriers filled the space ahead. Alarms rang. The crew braced themselves now. Lena said. Aaron hit the final command. The main cannon fired. A blinding white beam tearing through the darkness. It cut across the enemy line, destroying their carriers in one sweep. The fighters scattered, but the blast wave caught many of them. The rest fled, their formation breaking apart completely. Silence filled the control hall. Then cheers erupted. The threat was gone. Aaron turned to Lena. She was still standing, but the glow in her eyes was faint, her breathing shallow. You stay with me, he said softly. She smiled weakly. I told you. Together. Later. As the fleet secured the area and repairs began, the crew treated Lena not as an outsider, But as one of them, she walked among them, helping with injured crew, giving advice on defense upgrades. That night, Aaron found her on the observation deck. The stars shimmered beyond the glass. "When I first met you, I thought you were just a quiet worker," he said. She chuckled. "And I thought you were just a stubborn human," he smiled. We were both wrong. The station floated in the endless void, but inside it, there was light, warmth, and the beginning of a new trust between their peoples. Humanity had survived because it refused to let go, and Lena had learned that sometimes the strongest choice was not sacrifice alone, but the will to stand and fight together.